The Oklahoma City Thunder finally lose a game, getting beat down by the Utah Jazz after making an interesting roster move at the beginning of the day. Should you be freaking out about Olivier Sarr being waived from his two-way deal? No. What does this loss do for the future of the Thunder? And more coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. You can follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're going to dive into the Oklahoma City Thunder making a very interesting roster transaction, Jerry embarrassing the Defensive Player of the Year, and the Thunder finally losing. Plus, Isaiah Roby and Jalen Horde continue to impress. And it's a one-game lead enough to hold on to with the 2 games left in the season. But let's start with the pregame roster move. And I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I feel like I'm the crazy one. This move gets put out by Thunder PR, and of course, all of the media members, including myself, screenshot the release and put it on Twitter, and as we do, and the fan base just goes insane. DMs, mentions, comments on YouTube, whatever you want to look at. The Thunder waive Olivier Sarr from his 2-way contract, and they sign Melvin Frazier to the 2-way deal. And fans are freaking out. And I'm left wondering, was this really your final straw? Of all the tanking, of sitting down Alexei Pokusevski and Teo Maldon to tank, they sat down the worst player in the NBA statistically to lose games because he helped them win too much. This is your line? This is your cross to bear? It's cutting Olivier Sarr? Folks, I tried to tell you on this podcast for weeks now. I tried to warn you. Olivier Sarr is not somebody you should get attached to. Should you tip your cap to him? Should you applaud him? Should you thank him for the effort he put forth in these games, for competing every single night, for playing hard, for the fun moments like hitting 5 threes in a game? Absolutely. Is it cool for him personally to be able to say for the rest of his life he hit 5 threes in an NBA game? Absolutely. But Olivier Sarr was never a part of the long-term plan. And because his tenure gets cut 3 games short, that's enough to have the sky falling? And they replace him with Melvin Frazier, who's bounced around the Thunder organization with the Blue in training camp for 2 years now. 35th overall pick in 2018, 25 years old, a 6'5" guard. But it doesn't matter. Folks, Olivier Sarr was this year's version of Moses Brown. He had some good stretches. He had some good games. He's 23 years old. He's a 7-footer that's not very mobile. He's inconsistent at best from beyond the arc. He has bad hands. He's not a plus defender. As I said when they first signed him, he has no NBA trait. He has no reason to keep him in the league. Lindy Waters, a 2-way deal, a long shot, a guy that was playing semi-pro basketball earlier in the year. He had a trait. He had shooting, and he's branched off of shooting and developed more inside the NBA game so far. So while he looked like a long shot, he's now made it realistic. He's now made his dream realistic with a good offseason and the Thunder investing a 2-year, 2-way deal into him. You can start to rally around Lindy Waters. But Olivier Sarr was never going to be anything past the end of this season for the Thunder organization. And you hope he can catch on somewhere else. But it's a product of the environment. It's a product of tanking. It's why Moses Brown has a 2020 game in NBA history against the Boston Celtics. Think about how many players played basketball in general, high school, college, professionally somewhere in the NBA, and how many would kill to have the experience of putting up a 2020 game against the Boston Celtics. That's a cool experience. And when he was thrown into the Boston trade, fans were upset. Boston fans thought they were going to get Shaq. And then he's rerouted to Dallas. And then he's rerouted to Cleveland. He's a journeyman at best, if you even want to call him that, because while he's signed with different teams, he's not actually making an impact. And Olivier Sarr will suffer the same fate if he's lucky. That's very hard to do, to get multiple chances with that skill level. Look, it's a business. It's a competitive field. There's going to be a whole new group of draft prospects and some that go undrafted that have much more talent. The talent pool is always growing for the NBA. That's the sad reality of it. He was never on solid footing in the NBA. He even said every night's a job interview. And for Olivier Sarr, you hope that you put a 5-6 game stretch on film enough to make someone want to bring you into Summer League, and then you kill it there, then bring you into training camp, you kill it there, and then make the NBA roster in some capacity. But to have a few meltdowns on Twitter by certain fans was just interesting to me to see that over this transaction. This is not the hill to die on. And if you've bought into Olivier Sarr or you've bought into Jalen Horde, I don't know what to tell you. There's going to be players like Moses Brown, like Jalen Horde, like Olivier Sarr through the course of this rebuild, who will have good stretches whenever nobody else is on the floor. But you put them in a role that they're going to be more accustomed to, and they won't be able to produce. Olivier Sarr is not going to get 30 minutes a night anywhere else. And therefore, his production goes down. And therefore, it levels out to who he truly is. That's the bottom line. Again, it's a business. This is the bad part of the business. You wish every guy who played hard, every guy who tried hard, and you wish every person in the world could achieve their dreams of playing in the NBA and lasting in the NBA. But the sad reality is, they can't. And you're going to be riding high one day and wave the next morning. You're going to hit 5 threes in a game 2 nights ago and now jobless. And no matter what Melvin Frazier does in these next 2 games, I'd bet money he's not on the roster come June, come July. The roster for the Thunder will be a revolving door, using that 2-way slot, using 10-day contracts, using the end of the roster for just diamond hunting after diamond hunting, and at some points trying to lose, right? Look, you're about to play one of the lengthiest, biggest teams in the league, and you wave a 7-footer for another 6'5" guard in Melvin Frazier. That's a clear and obvious move. You didn't expect Sarr to stick around. He didn't prove enough to you in general that you want to give him another 2-way deal. You knew you were going to cut bait with him, so why not do it now before you play a very lengthy team? That's just where the Thunder are at. And that's the move that they made before the game against Utah. And now they got 2 more games left. They lose this game against Utah, get blown out 137-101. And with 2 games left, they set a game back of a top 3 seed, or if a bottom 3, if you want to look at it that way. But a top 3 seed on Tankathon.com, bottom 3 in the NBA. That, of course, is so important because it gives you a 14% chance at the top overall pick, which is the best you can do. You can't do better than 14% at the top overall pick. They're a game up on the Pacers for 4th place. The Pacers chasing them at 5th place. Pacers are a game back of 4th. Thunder currently occupy 4th. And they play the Lakers and the Clippers. And again, don't check out yet. These are 2 pivotal games. Lakers probably going to have no AD, no LeBron, no Russell Westbrook for that final meeting. Clippers have no incentive to play anybody. They have just absolutely no incentive to play anybody at all. And you're only a game up of the Pacers at 5. So don't check out yet. This is a very important weekend of Thunder basketball for the future of the Thunder if you want them to get back to contending sooner rather than later. But first, what I say right now, our good friends over at BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all betting needs and sports info from the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds, podcasts, and reviews of all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your betting wagering information, including live bets, esports, and scores. Head over to the website today or use your mobile device and learn more about the trends and actions this year. BetOnline is where the game starts. Folks, let me show you how easy this is. You type in betonline.net. You go to their sports book, and today is opening day. If you like baseball, check out our baseball network, Locked On MLB, Locked On MLB Prospects, and I'm hosting Locked On Royals, so check that out as well if you're a Royals fan, or check out whatever podcast you're a fan of in MLB. But today's opening day. Let's look at the Royals. They're 1.5 run underdogs. Let's take the Royals in that one at home for the home opener for opening day, all the pomp and circumstance. That's how easy it is to place a bet at BetOnline. So go check them out today where the game starts. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Check out the Locked On Now podcast as well. It's a nightly recap show of every NBA game from the night before with a breakdown from our local experts. It's free and available across all podcasts, wherever you get podcasts from. Let's continue diving into this game against the Jazz. It was another tank fest, this time at work, though. The Thunder sit down, of course. SGA, Lou Dort, Josh Giddey, Darius Baisley, Derek Favors, Ty Jerome, Trey Mann, Mike Muscala, Kenny Hustle, Teo Maldon, Pokusevski. Those two guys just sitting outright with Aaron Wiggins. They sat down the 55th overall pick in this year's draft, Aaron Wiggins, Alexei Pokusevski, and Teo Maldon to purposely try to lose. That's where it's gotten. And they did it last game as well, and they won. That's how good this culture is in Oklahoma City. The Jazz on the second night of back-to-back as well. Both teams coming in on the second night of a back-to-back. The Jazz sit down Donovan Mitchell. They sit down Mike Conley and Royce O'Neal. The Thunder start Xavier Simpson, Bid Critchie, Georges, Jalen Horde, and Isaiah Roby. The Jazz start Trent Forrest, Daniel House, Juancho Hernan-Gomez, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Rudy Gobert. The Jazz win 137-101. Utah's biggest lead was Dirk Nowitzki, 41 points. OKC's largest lead was 4, Nick Collison. 4 times this game was tied, 6 lead changes. OKC gets out-rebounded, I should say, 55-32. They got dominated on the glass by Utah. The Thunder had 1 less turnover. The Thunder were dominated in points in the paint, which was expected with Rudy Gobert down there and with all the length that they had with the Hassan Whiteside, things like that. The Jazz win points in the paint 60-36. Second chance points goes to Utah as well, 28-11. Utah wins fast break points, 12-5. The Utah bench outscores OKC 68-36. Obviously, their bench is a lot deeper than the Thunder, who only had about 8-9 active players, maybe up to 10. Utah had 3 more points off turnovers, 16-13. The Jazz won all 4 frames, but the Thunder shot 41% from the floor, 43% from 3, not bad, and 64% at the line. Utah shot 58% from the floor, 41% from 3, and 75% at the line. The Jazz had 6 in double figures, 1 with 9. Rudy had 20 points and 10 rebounds on no missed shots. Great job by Rudy Gobert. And the Thunder had 5 in double figures, 1 with 9. Big takeaways. Jalen Horde hit 5 threes. Again, Olivier Sarr hit 5 threes a couple days ago, which is awesome. Jalen Horde does it again in this game. Hit 5 threes of his own with 23 points. 8 for 17 from the floor, 5 rebounds, 3 steals. I should say 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, a block, a turnover, and 4 fouls. JRE, 16 minutes of action off the bench, but showed significant flashes. Obviously, JRE's returning from that foot injury where he broke a bone in his foot, so that's why they're kind of slow playing him and playing him off the bench in this game, even as the rest of the Thunder players are out. And obviously they're shorthanded, but still you want to kind of ease JRE back into action this year, and then let him have a fully healthy offseason to develop from year 1 to 2. But JRE, really good in this one. He drops off Rudy Gobert with a nice crossover. He drops 18 points, 2 rebounds, 4 for 4 from the line, 2 for 3 from 3. Not many players can shoot like him at 6'9". Not many players can shoot off the dribble, come around screens like him. Not many centers can run the floor like him. He's a nice roller as well, pick and pop specialist. And he's doing this without a creator on the floor in just 16 minutes. That's really impressive. That's kind of what stands out about him. There's no creator on the floor. You can say what you want to about Vid Krejci. Nice tall guard. Xavier Simpson's a nice story. There's no creator. There's no guy that can truly set up Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, and he still dominated the stretch of game he was in 16 minutes. Nice game from him. Isaiah Roby, really solid contributor. Again, I say it a lot. Isaiah Roby was dang near cut from the NBA. He was thrown into the Thunder trade whenever the Thunder made a trade with Patton to the Mavericks so that way they can cut him and save money and go get Willie Cauley-Stein. Remember back in 2020? And they let him rehab instead of going to the bubble because he was hurt, obviously. And in that training camp, a lot of people did not like his preseason showing. They wanted him cut. They were calling for him to be cut. The Thunder stuck with him. And now he's a legitimate NBA contributor. I'm not sure where his home is, but he does have a home in the NBA. I can't pinpoint the team. It might not be the Thunder, but I know he's going to be in this league for a long time. That's how good he's been for the Thunder. And again, it's different from Olivier Sarr because what Isaiah Roby's doing, the shooting is better. The hands are better. The dunker spot ability is better. What Isaiah Roby's doing is sustainable, and it's something that you can look to for the future if you're an NBA team scouting Isaiah Roby. In this game, he showed very good leadership skills, and it was more of a vocal role in getting the defensive aligned. So that kind of shows you can help you anchor your defense on the bench. However, the 6 fouls he had and 1 steal, it's not great. He's going to be somebody who's limited by his size. He's really good offensively, I think. I would take him offensively as a backup big 10 times out of 10. Where he's counteracted, though, is defensively. His size is just going to hamper him his entire career. He can do everything right, be in the correct position every time down the floor. You're still going to score over him if you're a bigger guy like Jokic, like Gobert, like Embiid. Those bigger matchups for him is either going to get him in foul trouble or have him have no resistance at the rim. And so that creates him to be not only a role player, not only a rotational player, but a matchup-dependent role player, which does limit him, obviously. But in general, I still think he has room in the NBA. 60% from the floor, 4 for 6 from 3, 2 for 3 from the line, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and a steal. That was a good game from him. And we'll talk about Vid Krejci and the MVP of this game, all coming up on the Locked On Thunder podcast, the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. But first, we want to tell you right now to go check out the Locked On NBA podcast. The Locked On NBA podcast is for you. Thank you for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Your second listen, check out the Locked On NBA podcast. It has our local experts covering the biggest stories from around the NBA Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available across all platforms. Locked On NBA. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm Rylan Stiles. Thank you for listening to Locked On Thunder. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles so you never miss an update on the Thunder. And let's get back into this Jazz game. Vid Krejci, solid game from him. 9 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, a steal, 1 for 4 from deep, 4 for 9 from the floor. Look, with Vid Krejci, it's obviously the Thunder like him. I mean, they took on the Admiral Schofield contract to acquire him from Washington. They let him rehab his entire first year in Oklahoma City, being on the G League roster during the G League bubble season, but just staying in Oklahoma City, rehabbing himself and getting ready for this season. And in this season, he's looked good. He's shown flashes of why the Thunder brought over. The shooting, the playmaking off of that shooting has been okay. The defense has not been there. And Mark has even said, look, he's still a step slower than what we saw on film whenever we traded for him because of that injury. And so I'm very fascinated by him and what he looks like after a fully healthy offseason. And I think that that's whenever you're going to get to gauge him. I think that the Thunder are going to want to keep him around and at least see if they can get something out of him that can be what they saw in his footage overseas. With that healthy offseason, with him being in Oklahoma City, he's dedicated to it. I mean, he stayed in Oklahoma City for over a year without playing for the Thunder yet. And now you can truly have a hands-on molding of his game instead of rehabbing him the way we were last offseason. Now it's truly up to the great developmental staff for the Thunder to get what's best from him defensively, because he's an NBA quality player offensively. He just is already, while not having a healthy offseason, while still being a step slow. if you could somehow have it scheduled, I think that hockey does this, right? In soccer, if you could somehow have Vic Krejci as only on the offensive end of the floor, and like you have a line change, and someone else could go play defense for him. If he was an offense only player, he'd be a really good NBA player. The problem is he's got to play both ways, and he has a frame, he has a size to do it. He's got to get healthy, and he's got to learn how to use that frame and size to his advantage. And with the Thunder staff, I think he can do that. So I'm very interested to see him in summer league, in preseason, next season for the Thunder. I do think, though, that for Vic Krejci, given all the draft picks in the future, given the fact that they're going to have to make trades and consolidate roster spots, he's been put on a time crunch where he has to take this offseason extremely seriously and hope that it pans out for him, because I think that he's not going to be given another offseason unless he produces next year. And he's already produced in stretches in this season, so I have no concerns about that, but it is something to watch and be aware of for the future of the Thunder and for the future of Vic Krejci. But a nice, solid game from him. My Moneyball pick was nobody, because who in the world knew who was going to play today? But obviously, it was Jalen Horde, who had 5 3-pointers. The MVP of the game, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. He was awesome. He just was flat out awesome. Tanking update, Thunder sit at 4, a game back of a top 3 seed, a game up of the Pacers on 5th place, 2 games to go against the Lakers and Clippers. No LeBron, Russ, AD for the rest of the year, probably. And the Clippers probably resting everybody on the last game of the season. But don't check out yet, because obviously the seeding will matter. I mean, where you end up on tankathon.com will matter for this Thunder team. What's to come on Locked On Thunder, which will matter a lot too. On Friday's show, bright and early, we'll have a podcast with Richard Stayman, debuting at midnight tonight on YouTube if you want to check it out, and wherever you get your podcast from. And his podcast with Richard Stayman and myself on Friday is all about Jaden Ivey. It's a profile piece on the Purdue guard that will likely end up in Oklahoma City. If we had to just guess if the Thunder actually did get picked 4 and the lottery didn't change things, but we know the lottery will. Monday, we're going to recap the regular season finale. Tuesday, we're going to grade the regular season. Wednesday, a mailbag podcast. Thursday, stock watch, offseason preview type of podcast. Plus, we'll throw in an NBA playoff preview. And then Friday, we'll have a Jabari Smith profile with Mavs draft, and we'll continue those profiles throughout the next week as well. So we're going to do those profiles all throughout the draft season, even after the draft, whenever we find out who the Thunder actually took. It's going to be a lot of fun, so stay tuned for all the draft coverage ramping up starting next week as the season comes to a close. Thank you for another season of Locked On Thunder. So happy to be here. My dream job. I've always dreamed about being a media member for the Thunder, and just in general. I knew at a young age I was terrible at sports. Awful. So instead of growing up wanting to be Kevin Durant, I grew up wanting to be Dan Patrick. And obviously not Dan Patrick, but it's awesome taking these steps forward every year with Locked On Thunder, and that's all thanks to you guys growing with me. So thank you. I always love the kind messages that I get on Twitter and mentions. It means a lot. So make sure you follow me there at Ryland_style. Subscribe to the show for free on all platforms. Every platform is free to subscribe to Locked On Thunder. We're here every single day. We will continue throughout the off season, so make sure you tune in for that as well. So until next time, be good and be good to one another.